Greetings, Grace. Today is March 8th, and welcome to Cover. And today we're covering Numbers chapters 27 through 29. Chapters 27 will be an example of case law regarding the daughters of a man named Zelophehad. And chapters 28 through 29 will cover the intricacies of the daily sacrifice and the sacrifices that are appropriate for the different feast days of Israel. So let us begin. Chapter 27. What's taking place? A man named Zelophehad has five daughters that are explicitly named in the text, but no sons. And so these women come forward and they say, hey, wait a minute. We know that the law is written in a certain way that inheritance passes down from father to son, but our father had no sons. Should we be denied an inheritance? Now, this is kind of an important part because in Mesopotamia and Egypt, laws allowed for women to own land and receive inheritances, and so this is kind of unusual in Israel as far as the the whole Near East goes. That women are in some sense excluded from it. Well, what takes place? A couple of things are going on. First off, if you remember Leviticus 25:23. Technically speaking, nobody in Israel owns any land. The land belongs to God. And that's why we have this whole Jubilee system, is that an inheritance is going to go out, it's going to belong to the clans, it belongs to the people, but nobody actually possesses it. We just kind of have it on lease. And it says, you are strangers and aliens, you're tenants on the Lord's land. Don't you ever forget it. In the case of Zelophehad and his five daughters, they are praised for their actions of stepping forward and kind of addressing the issues with the law. What you have in the law, in Genesis through Deuteronomy, is you have examples of what are called apodictic laws. These are laws like thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery. And then you have what are called casuistic laws, or case statement, case law, like if this happens, then that happens. And so what we have are Zelophehad's daughters coming forward and addressing and actually challenging apodictic laws, challenging the status quo and saying, hey, we have a unique case. This is significant because it shows that in Israel, the laws themselves were amenable and adaptable to the circumstances of the day. If we go further on to Numbers 36, this case comes back up again, and it mentions that in the future, the daughters of Zelophehad are required to marry within their clan because, once again, the land doesn't belong to anyone. It's the Lord's land. And so it's important that that area, that inheritance area, stay within the right clan, within the right tribe, and that the tribes are not all mishmashed and mixed up. So that's the case of Zelophehad and his five daughters. After the case of Zelophehad's daughters, we now progress to the rest of the chapter. In 27 verses 12 through 23, Joshua is appointed as Moses' successor. God had already told Moses he would not be able to enter the promised land. So Moses is being kept out. But the Israelites who had sinned in the chapters just preceding, they're going to be allowed to enter the promised land. What's going on with that? There's a clear indication that God places a great importance on the role of the leader and the leader's character. And specifically, that's exactly what God says to Moses, is you didn't represent me adequately, and that's why you're being kept out of the promised land. God commands Moses to publicly lay hands on Joshua, and we will see and have seen the laying of hands as a sign of blessing going all the way back to Genesis. Keeping in mind that Moses spoke to God face to face, we see the establishment of a means of communication with God through the high priest and the use of the Urim and the Thummim in order to intuit the will of God, or to inquire kind of as an oracle to find the will of God. There's a transition from the old generation to the new generation. So not only are the people of the land, the old generation not entering, they've all died off, But now a new generation has risen, and Moses is kind of seen as a member of that old generation. So now an entirely new generation is coming forward that's going to be led by Joshua. Chapters 28 and following to the end of 29 is we get this calendar of sacrifices. All the regular sacrifices that Israel will make in the course of the calendar year. This includes all the daily sacrifices, all the sacrifices for the various feasts, and all the sacrifices for all the different festivals. Every year, the priests will have to sacrifice 113 bulls, 32 rams, and 1,086 lambs. And then they will have to offer more than a ton of flour and 1,000 bottles of oil and wine. These sacrifices exclude all of the sin offerings that we read about in the Leviticus. So why are the sacrifices mentioned here and in this spot? Scholars are not entirely certain, but there are some really strong theories. Israel was just commanded to go to war with Midian, following from the previous section. And these abundant sacrifices foreshadow a victory and prosperity in Israel's future. In Exodus through Deuteronomy, there is a cycle where Israel sins, is judged by God, repents, and then gets more laws. So these sacrifices serve as a rededication of the nation to God after that Baal Peor incident, after Israel had fled off to the wives of the Midianites and gone to worship Baal. So these sacrifices mark the natural flow of the narrative following Joshua's appointment as Moses' successor. So it's the necessary thing, the great follow-up to what we just saw in chapter 27 of Joshua leading the people.